Hello everyone, this is Dimitar from the RedmineUP support. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a default sprint on the Agile board. And there are two steps needed for this to be achieved. Activate sprints by default feature to be enabled and to make a sprint active as a status. So maybe it sounds a bit difficult now, and I'm going to show you in detail how to do it so it will be easier for you to understand, okay? So firstly, we go to our demo server, that is demo.redmineup.com, so you're free to test it anytime on it. The credentials they are automatically filled, but just to say they are user admin and password admin. So you just logged in and do some tests if you wish. Okay, so we click on the Agile board, on the Agile project demo, then on the Agile board. And as we can see, firstly, on the first view, there is no sprint at all. This is because Kanban board is selected by default. So the first option about activate sprint by default option is this. It is going to make a sprint to be default um, as a feature, okay? So by default now it's a Kanban board. Okay, so to do it, you have to go to settings of the project. No, sorry, not settings of the project, but administration. Sorry about that. On the top right corner of Redmine. Then you have to click on Agile here. Uh, yeah, actually, it needs me to uh, confirm it is me. So the password is admin, as I said before. Okay, so these are the global configurations of Agile, and we see the active sprints by default option here. So make sure to enable this feature and apply the changes. Okay, so when we go back to the Agile board and, for example, go to the issues in the project and then return back to Agile board, we see that by default, the Scrum board is selected and the sprints here as part of the Scrum board are also appearing. So this is making sprints and Scrum board in general uh, made and active by default when you click on the Agile board. So if you try to repeat and go somewhere else, for example, on the drive, and then go back to the Agile board, we see that sprints feature is automatically selected here, as well as the Scrum board accordingly. So sprints are part of the Scrum board accordingly. So by the way, if you'd like to know what is the difference between a Scrum board and a Kanban board, please just check our documentation of the Agile. There is a separate article and guide that is explaining the difference between them. Okay, so the second thing that I want to show you is how to make a default sprint on the Agile board. This is the main purpose of this video. So by now we see that sprint 1 is make here appearing by default. But what if you wish to have a sprint number 3 to have been set here as default? Okay, so for this purpose you have to make active status of this sprint. Okay, so to do it, you need to go to the settings of this project this time, and here we see sprints. And if we check the statuses, we see that two of them are open and one is active. So please remember that a sprint could be active only as only one sprint can be active. So if we change another sprint to be active, then the previous one is automatically turned to be open, not active. So yeah, there could be no more than one active sprints, only one by default. What if you do, no matter what you do, only one sprint could be active. Okay, so in our case, we have sprint 1 to be active, and if we wish the third sprint to be set by default on the Agile board, on the Scrum board, then we have to make sprint 3 to be active. Okay, so we click on edit of the sprint and make the status to be active. Okay, so save the changes, of course. Okay, so here we said end date should be more than start date. Good, so we make 4 weeks here, and we are now good. Okay, so we see that number 3 sprint number 3 is now active, and sprint 1 is automatically moved to be open. Okay, so this is, as I said, just a rule for the sprints of the Agile Scrum board. Only one active sprint. Okay, so if we go back to the Agile board and go somewhere else, for example, on the roadmap or spend time, and if we return back to the Agile board, we see that by default, we have selected the sprint number 3. Okay, so this was the point of recording this video. So we have how to make a default sprint on the Agile board, and we have made sprint number 3 as a default on the Agile board by just opening it. So if we go somewhere else on the backlog and return back to Agile, we see that it is still number 3 sprint available here. Okay, if you wish to make sprint number 2 to be default, it is the same thing, same procedure. We edit the sprint, make it to be active, save the changes, and here it is. Sprint number 2 is active. And if we go now somewhere else on the Agile, on the Agile project, and go to the Agile board, we see that number 2 sprint is set by default here on the top. Okay, so if you would like to double check this, we open 2 tickets and see that indeed they are sprint number 2. And this one also, it is sprint number 2. Okay, so yeah, this video was about showing you how to make a sprint default on the Agile board and the Scrum board in particular. So no matter where you go into Redmine, so if you go in invoices, for example, invoices project, and go back to projects again, click on Agile board, it says that number 2 sprint is by default selected on the Agile board. So this is the feature of making it appearing by default. Okay, so yeah, if you find this video helpful, then you can share it and like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have some questions or problems or just want to say hi to our team, then please drop a message to support@redmineup.com. Yeah, so thanks again for the patience of watching this video, and see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.